Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 46, and we are at the 2/3 mark, or just about there. The 2/3 mark, actually probably right about this time, we're at exactly the 2/3 mark through this challenge. Still 1/3 to go, and a lot can happen still. Question about pasta. Is pasta okay to eat? I guess it depends on what is in it. But do you have any whole food pasta or bread recommendations? I never thought I'd say this, but kind of getting sick of rice. Pasta is okay. I would probably recommend having something more along the lines of a whole wheat pasta, or maybe a brown rice pasta, something like this. You know, if you have a white pasta, you're just not going to get as much nutrients in there. You're not going to get as much vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, some B vitamins like B6 and folate, and probably some other nutrients, fiber, just because the bran is stripped away. So, try to stick with something more along the lines of a whole wheat. Be aware of gluten, of course, because maybe you're gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant. So in that case, maybe you want to go with something like a brown rice pasta. But there's nothing wrong with it. You can have some pasta in your diet. That's totally fine. Again, if we go with more of these refined foods, so something like a white bread or a white pasta, you're getting the carbohydrates, and I allow you to have carbohydrates, and this is fine. But also we want to think about the nutrients that are coming along with it, or lack of nutrients for that matter, okay? So I'm totally fine with pasta or bread. Any recommendations? Okay, for pasta, I don't have any recommendations. For bread, I've always been a fan of swirly bread. And if you are gluten sensitive, you can go with a sourdough bread. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, look for these pastas or breads that have minimal ingredients. Well, even a refined pastas can have minimal ingredients, actually. But try to look for something that is that has minimal ingredients and is also not been bleached or had the fiber removed. Okay, so that is my recommendation on that. All right, next here. Okay, this person asks, deadlifts, I get corrected on the proper way of doing them each time, but even corrected, I don't feel like I'm working on any muscle. Am I missing something here? Okay, so with compound movements, major compound movements, especially like a deadlift, there's a lot that's working. All right, so there's also a lot that's stabilizing. So when we talk about working, we're talking about muscles that are moving the weight, but also muscles that are stabilizing. But don't confuse this with something like an isolated movement. So an isolated movement, you're going to feel much more because there's really only one muscle working the whole time through the whole range. When you're doing a deadlift, for instance, your back is going to be stabilizing you immensely. But your quads and your hamstrings are going to be working from the bottom, and then as you go through part of that range, you're going to start to put a lot more emphasis on the glutes and the back. Okay, so this is a movement that is, as I said, involves many muscles. It's really what we would consider not a movement that's working a particular muscle group. Obviously, I just said that. But something that's going to work more of your posterior chain, which essentially is like everything from your calves all the way up to your neck. So because we're not isolating here, and because muscles, not all the muscles, but a lot of muscles that are working here are just simply stabilizing. They are working, they're contracting, but they're not necessarily changing in their length. Okay, the muscle's not shortening or lengthening. With maybe the exception of the hamstrings and the quads. A lot is just stabilizing you, taking through. So the muscles are still working, but they're kind of working in a different way. Okay, this is probably the best way for me to put it. It's not like a bicep movement or a tricep movement where we're going through full range of motion and only one muscle is contributing, or a group of only one muscle group is contributing to that full movement pattern. Okay. So this is normal. You just won't do a deadlift and be like, oh wow, I really feel this in my calves or something, or I really feel this, in my glutes. You're just not going to do that. The next day, however, with deadlifts, especially if you train heavy, and this person does the online classes, so they probably don't really experience this, you're going to really feel your back, okay? A lot, and probably your hamstrings to some degree as well. Okay, question about Greek yogurt. I'm at 6 minutes. Let's go to message of the day. Message of the day. On this day 46, the 2/3 way through the challenge. We got 1/3 to go. And I will tell you, you can still make mega massive change. You can still make mega massive change. Yes, you can, because there's still 1/3 of the challenge to go. There's still 1/3 of the challenge to go. And I know a lot of you are still struggling with your diet because you're not pre-planning your food. And so I'm going to really encourage you to do that. Pre-plan. That means you have everything set out that you're going to eat days in advance, okay? Or at least a day in advance. And this way you cannot miss your numbers. You just can't, okay? Unless, of course, you don't eat the food. But if you already have everything planned out, as I know some of you do, you will be much more successful in this challenge, right? One other thing I'm going to remind you to be successful in this challenge, so that you can make mega massive change over this final third. Eat real whole food, as much real whole food as possible, and get a good amount of a protein strong food every single time you eat. Just following those 2 rules, you should see really, really good change, okay? All right, positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.